Is Ram going out of business? With all these trucks piling up on the lots, none of them are selling. It begs the question, why aren't they buying? People refuse to buy them, that's why. Brand new 2025s rolling on the lot already. We have a 1500 SST. Here we have a 1500 E-Torque like that. Lots of different variations already. Here's another 1500 E-Torque, and this vehicle here retails for about $69,000, and this is a Bighorn Sport Quad Cab 4x4. So they're still definitely priced very, very high, to the point where a lot of customers can't afford to buy a $70,000 truck, especially when it's only middle of the road. Can you imagine how much that new 25 is when you get into the top trim levels? We already heard that Tim, the CEO of Dodge and Ram, decided to jump ship. Time to retire after 30 some odd years. He's gone. Do you think the poor sales of all these Rams, or the fact that any of these Dodge products like the Durango or any Dodge Hornets aren't selling, have anything to do with the fact that the CEO just walked out of the room? The fact of the matter is, these are beautiful trucks. Who wouldn't want a beautiful Ram with this new style and the big snarling nostrils? Well, the fact is, people can't afford it. It's not about not wanting them, it's about they can't afford it. The cost of living crisis is getting a stranglehold on everybody, and they're not able to get loose from that. People are struggling just to pay their bills, pay for their mortgage, pay for their rent, pay for their food, and yet then they see the prices of these new vehicles. It's cost prohibitive. Oh, and look at this little guy. He's getting what he can as well. He's trying to eat just about anything he can get his hands on. And we have a whole selection of beautiful trucks, and the problem is, it's just not the 25s that are rolling in. It's the 24s, the 23s are still on the lot.
And Mark, here's the other thing. You see this Escalade on it. It says floor plan. That's the seller. It's so bad right now that dealers are actually getting their cars repossessed and sent to auction for them to be helped to sell them, because dealers are in a bad place right now. They're having a much harder time selling their vehicles. People cannot get loans for a lot of these cars.
Floor plan costs are real, and the credit costs are starting to break the banks, breaking the dealerships. And many of the dealerships are having to start giving their products back or have them repossessed. No different than you. You take a loan for the car, you stop making payments for 6 months, bye-bye, that car is gone.
And if you can't get a loan for a car, in a lot of cases, you can't buy the car. If people can't buy cars, they're not buying them from dealers. Dealers are in trouble right now.
I had a chat the other day with this great Dodge Ram Chrysler salesperson, and he was one of the best salespeople in his particular dealership. Been selling vehicles for literally ever, and yet he's telling me a lot of these vehicles are not selling, and the ones that are because they're incentivized to the extreme. For example, the Ram Classic, which unfortunately in Canada is going bye-bye next year. They've literally discontinued that. Those are being incentivized to the max. They're offering up only $1,000 flat rate, according to the sales guy, for the sale of each one of those Ram Classics. There's not much money in it, but yet they're still overpriced. What's going on? And repossessions are another key indicator as to how the overall car market and truck market's doing, and Ram isn't doing so well. And often with repossessions, you're finding vehicles that are neglected, abused, or in the first place, you had people that often would dress them up like this, then they're making these big car payments, truck payments like those Rams, and they're costing them $1,200, $1,500, $1,800, even $2,000 a month. And then they go, because they're making money, they're on the oil patch, they're making all kinds of cash, and then all of a sudden they start outfitting them with goodies like those big wheels, wheel arches right there, tonneau covers, but then they lose their job, and then they have to say bye-bye to that truck. In many cases, people are even buying used vehicles and they're not keeping up with the payments. And even examples like this, vehicles are not generally looked after all that well because people don't care. They know it's going bye-bye. Tell me this vehicle isn't a repo without telling me this is a repo. And yet another repo heading off to the auction. Clearly ran it through the mud one last time. You've got trim falling off, and this vehicle isn't all that well looked after. Clearly they didn't care because they knew it was going away. And my buddy who works at that Dodge dealer selling Ram products is telling me literally vehicles like this. We're talking about the 1500 Classic Ram. This one actually has the 5.7, but the base Classic is a crew cab 4x and actually comes with a V6 engine, which isn't really their best engine. But he basically said, they're not saying it officially, but what they are doing is giving massive discounts for people that aren't actually trying to push. They're still selling at top dollar. So they're being a little under the table. But at the end of the day, if you go in there, you know what the bottom line is for these vehicles. You know how badly Ram wants to get rid of these vehicles, which is seriously desperately. Then you'll know you can go in there. And Buddy even told me that you could probably, they were taking $15,000, $18,000, $20,000 off of some of these Classics here recently just to get a sale, because they know that these vehicles are going waving by the dodo bird, and these vehicles are going away very, very soon. Now, the Classic does give you the basic, of course, front spoiler. You'd get the old headlights, as you can tell right there. Some people, that's all they care. You get a smaller set of wheels. This is, again, the 5.7 Hemi Classic. You do get the crew cab here. You get lots of space. Big box. This is the standard box on these. You get the big horns of despair, and of course it's a 4x4. You get the chrome tips on here. Very nice package here, but how much are these Classics really? I mean, this one here doesn't have a sticker on it. Let's take a look over here. There's one here with the V6 right here. Doesn't have the Hemi. As you can see, there's no markings on it. So how much is this? Whoa, let's shoehorn in there. Whoa, all right. And this one here is a 1500 Classic Express crew cab 4x4. And this does come with the 3.6 liter V6 engine. Stickers at $65,000. Now, my buddy there is saying 65 grand is ridiculous. He even openly admits these prices are out of this world. And even as a sales guy, he's starting to see the writing on the wall. People are not buying these trucks. Even the Classics, even knowing that there's some massive discounts. People are not spending their money. They're done. $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 for a new truck. We even just saw that brand new 25 going for the price that it was. This 2025 straight off the boat right here, SST. As you'll notice, quite a unique little decal. I love this style of mirror. Very interesting. They have the branding Ram, it says down in there. Very cool. Of course, this one here does, it's pretty much just fabric seats, pretty basic, no sunroof, which is okay. But why are they charging so much for a basic truck? Here we got the shiny polished handles on there, and there's the price. But you do get a basic box. It looks like it needs a spray and liner, I would say. But here, this is a 1500 Bighorn Night Crew 4x4, brand new 25 model year with the Hurricane engine, the twin turbo straight six, $79,000. So what he did say was, people are often going to be looking backdating if they could afford it. And many people are actually waiting. They're skipping out on this. They're waiting for the big incentives for the brand new Rams, because what most people are looking for is the 5.7 liter V8. The jury's out yet how that new Turbo 6 is going to sell, but the bottom line is most of these people that are buying Ram pickup trucks love the old Mopar V8 powertrain. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And at the end of the day, nobody wants a turbo 6-cylinder engine in their big truck. I mean, Ford tried that. Sure, they're selling a lot of vehicles still, but it took a long time. And I'm not sure Stellantis or Ram has that type of time to get everybody on board and switched over. And so with all of these older trucks right here, 2023, 2022, even 24s, people are still holding on, waiting for those incentives to be pushed even more aggressively, because Sales Buddy is literally saying what's happening is they want the V8s, they don't want the 6s, but they want to wait, let Stellantis get even hungrier. So they start pushing their new 25s. They're going to be even more hungry to sell those older V8s, the Hemis, the 5.7s, even the older V6s for a song and a dance. And a lot of buyers are waiting for that moment. But again, not everybody. Some people are just broke and don't have the money. And over here in Upside Down Alley, where a lot of people lost their shirts buying trucks in 2022 at the peak, when they no longer really couldn't afford it, but they needed a truck, they needed to do something. And all these manufacturers like Ram were charging customers like they should never have charged them, but they were. And people were buying. And unfortunately, because government handouts, because money was getting thrown out, banks were enabling this activity, dealers were enabling this activity. Often there was many shady dealers that were even underwriting and giving people loans that probably shouldn't have had loans. Then they got into that truck, sadly, only to realize after a year and a half of payments, they could no longer afford that $1,800 a month payment. And then they had to either trade it in, trade it down, or possibly just have it taken away by the bank because they couldn't afford to make the payments. Obviously, people are trying to eat, they're trying to sleep, and a vehicle is always tertiary in the priority scale. And Stellantis sales overall in the first quarter of 2024 are down 10% from 2023. 368,000 units compared to 332,000 this year alone shows that the majority of the loss in sales by Stellantis are chalked up to Ram and Dodge. For example, expensive trucks like these, or these trucks, or these trucks, or even this truck. Here's Big the Mamba. We have the steel wheels. It's a dually. Lots of great hardware here. This is for your maximum towing duty. This carries the Cummins diesel 3500 HD, and we've seen this one here before, but this truck here is listed at $129,000. I can't believe the prices that they're charging for these vehicles, but it's costs like that are becoming prohibitive. Okay, well, you ask yourself, I don't need a diesel truck, I don't need a dually. What about something a little bit more mainstream? It's actually trucks like this are some of the biggest problem for Ram, and they're not selling these because they're overpriced to the extreme is what we're finding. Okay, we have the 1500 Hemi e-torque, which is good. A lot of people like that configuration, and it's a Ram, so clearly it's a half ton. Look around, you got the basic handles. It's not a really high level of spec. You get this chrome wheels, basically a lower level unit. It's a big horn for sure, and it's 4x4, so it has most of the muster that you actually need to get around day to day to do your working duties, and that's just enough for most people. Yes, you get the older style headlights, which is being phased out now, and naturally you get the big bold grille, but it's not the fact that it has a little bit of chrome and interesting headlights and all of those other components. It's what's actually charged to the end consumer, you, actually, when you're buying this vehicle, because what we have here is a 2023. That's right, a 23, folks. This truck is, yeah, we're already almost 2 years old because 25s are coming out. This truck's basically 2 years old. Think about rot lot for a sec before I give you the final number on that. I mean, when you look at rot lot, these vehicles, these tires, for example, when you look at the date code on them, they're only good for 10 years and then they start getting little cracks and splits. That's rot lot. That starts to go away. Batteries become a problem. They sit, they discharge, and even if they don't discharge, that starts to take a toll. Batteries have a limited shelf life as well. Electronics, components, even the paint takes a beating when the sun's constantly beating down. That's a couple more years exposed to the sun before you even buy this vehicle. Lot rot is real, but let's take a look. This is a 23 1500 Bighorn Krug 4x4. Now here's where it gets interesting. This is a $59,000 base MSRP. 60 grand, okay. What's wrong with 60 grand? Well, let's take a look. Here we have a host of options, most of which are really mostly fluff, if we're being honest. Lighting group, we have all kinds of things, safety group, entertainment level B equipment group. So it gives you a bunch of widgets and add-ons. But from 60 grand, all of a sudden they're listed at this price as sitting at $78,000. That's almost 80 grand. That's $20,000 in options. That's a third of the price of this vehicle added on for a few pinsly options. So that's what's going on. People are paying too much for all these widgets and these options. Now, yes, it's great to have some of those features, but how can a manufacturer in their right mind actually charge 20 grand for a bunch of electronics and wiring harnesses that are all there already, a few cheap plastic trim, and maybe a slightly larger set of wheels? How is it even possible that some of these OEMs feel right to actually charge $20,000 on top of sticker for the base truck, for the regular truck, just throwing on a few odds and ends? This is what's going on, and this is what's wrong with this whole market. So I did some checks online, and I checked with our buddies there on this site, and basically nationwide in the US, you're looking at 2023 to 2024 Rams. There's thousands, in that 7,000 to 8,000 units available that are not selling. 23s, 24s. Remember, 25s are starting to show up. And on top of that, in Canada right here, we also have 23, 24s across the country to the tune of about 831 units, Rams of 23, 24s. Clearly, they're not selling. Nobody's buying. And yeah, people are saying, well, yeah, I see them all over. I do too. There are the odd person buying these vehicles. Let's not kid ourselves. But the reality is, to keep the lights on at these big, expensive dealerships, they have to move product, and it's not moving. The fact is, most of these Rams are just not selling. Here we have a 2024 1500 Rebel. Look, even the paperwork's getting old and crusty. It's clearly been there quite a while. I mean, let's face it, even the birds don't love this truck all that much. They're not showing it a whole lot of love. And this truck isn't well loved either by the birds. Look at all that goodness from the birds. And it probably has something to do with the fact that this 1500 Rebel Night Crew is going for about $92,000. Like, who could possibly pay for that? Now, talking to my Ram sales buddy there, he says it's a sad state of affairs because he sees customers come in all excited with glee, sign on the dotted line for their brand new truck, and then he sees them a year later and they're in a rough, dire straits, and he's asked how they were doing. And they said, well, we just had our vehicle repossessed, lost the job, couldn't make the payments, and then the truck went away. So it's a heartbreaking story to hear people in those scenarios. It's also heartbreaking to hear the cost of living crisis. It is real. People don't have the money that they once had. It felt like it was a free-for-all back in 2020, 21. Life was good. Interest rates were low. Governments were throwing money around like it was going out of style. 22 hit. Prices went up, but people still seem to have a little bit of money to kick around. Roll the dice. All of a sudden, a couple years later, and now people are out of money. Jobs aren't paying. A lot of businesses aren't even hiring people. It's hard to find a job, or if you do, the jobs don't pay as well as they once did. And now, sadly, everything else is going up. Even McDonald's is charging more for their garbage food, and on top of it, these truck prices just continue to rise at an absolutely explosive rate. And now, unfortunately, because these high prices, now you're seeing people make many different choices. They're saying bye-bye to vehicles like their toys. You know, Jeeps, Rubicons, all those toys that were nice to have, saying bye-bye to that. Or the shiny red toys like this. Often people are having to give the keys back to that vehicle, so they trade it up for something smaller like this that seems to be a little more responsible and easier to justify for the family. And people are making other big choice changes. Instead of buying that big beefed up Ram like this, they're trading that up for a little unit like this, the nice little responsible choice. Or they're going with other vehicles like this junky old repo that came back from the auction, where it's all banged up. You see the fenders, it's missing trim. You can tell it's been clapped out. I mean, how do you even make those bolts rust like that? Those are usually chrome filled. And as well, of course, look at this truck overall. It's got all kinds of missing parts and pieces. This thing is beat up, rode hard, put away wet. But that's what people are having to relegate themselves to because they can't afford a decent new truck. Or also, they might even step into something like this. You've got all kinds of marks, you've got dents, scratched wheels. Look at rust starting to form. You've got all kinds of scratches and dents all over this unit. Lots of rust setting in right there. Look, it's been scraped, it's been banged there a few times. You circle around, it's got broken windshield on there. Have you ever heard of the broken windshield syndrome? That's where if you see other broken glass, you start to neglect. Other people get the same message, and then they start to abuse your stuff because there's a perception that you don't care about yours, so they don't care about yours either. But here's another vehicle issue too. Obviously, this one's all rusted out. Look at all that rust underneath there. We have the cable hanging down there as well. This vehicle's been skidded along the curbs as well. Has all kinds of dents and scratches, more rust on here, more marks and divots. So this is what people are having to go to. A vehicle that's got huge mileage, rust, dents, scratches, and usually needs some mechanical repair because they can't afford these brand new trucks. The cost of living crisis is hitting everybody really hard. The worst part is this is insult to injury. These high priced trucks right now that Ram is pumping out, even if there are incentives, they're not openly advertising it all that much. And they're hoping that, at least by my perception, what I've personally experienced is that unless you ask, they won't tell. So what's going on is the typical middle-class worker, lunchbox Joe like me and like some of you watching right now, would love to have a brand new truck like this. And these are the very vehicles that were intended for people like us, middle class, working stiffs, you know, people that work with our hands sometimes as much as our heads sometimes. But that's the sad state of affairs that we're in, the prices of these Rams. And yet you go talk to a dealer and they'll tell you they're losing money if they can't charge what they're charging. So there seems to be a bit of a tug of war here. We've got CEOs jumping ship. We've got people stopping buying. Vehicles are not selling. So at the end of the day, Ram is in serious distress because people aren't buying. So could they be going out of business? Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. Definitely check out that. What's going on with Ford? That's another interesting conversation. Hope to see each and every one of you in the next one. We'll see you all real soon. Bye-bye.